Marine insurance operates on a strict mathematical premise. Many parties contribute premiums into a common fund, and that pool is used to offset the rare, catastrophic financial losses suffered by a few. This model looks similar to a wager, but operates on distinct logic. A wager yields a conditional profit. An insurance pool strictly activates for unforeseen events, never inevitable occurrences like standard wear and tear. In 1883, Castellian v. Preston codified the pool's legal ceiling. A claimant shall be fully indemnified, but never more than fully indemnified. This threshold is the principle of indemnity. It is the exact financial compensation required to place the insured in the same financial position held immediately before the loss occurred. Restricting payouts to this exact measure removes any financial incentive to deliberately destroy property. It enforces caution and serves the public interest by preserving maritime assets. The Marine Insurance Act of 1906 is built entirely to defend this zero line. Every clause and secondary legal rule acts as a mathematical enforcement mechanism to protect the indemnity pool. To access the indemnity pool, a claimant must first prove they have a measurable stake in the asset. They must suffer a direct financial penalty if the specific ship or cargo is lost. This prerequisite is defined as insurable interest. The dependency must be strictly financial, not emotional or speculative. Maritime trade creates a unique logistical complication. Under standard free-on-board or cost, insurance, and freight sale contracts, the physical ownership of goods often transfers from seller to buyer while the ship is mid-ocean. To accommodate moving custody, the law specifies that insurable interest does not need to exist when the policy is purchased. It must only exist at the exact moment the loss occurs. This requires assignment, the legal transfer of policy rights and liabilities to a third party as the cargo changes hands across a voyage. Cargo policies are easily assigned, but hull insurance, covering the actual ships, is usually restricted. A ship's risk profile depends heavily on a specific owner's management and maintenance protocols, making it impossible to pass the policy to an unknown operator. By demanding a verifiable financial stake at the time of loss, insurable interest acts as the first gatekeeper. It prevents third-party gambling on maritime disasters. Underwriting maritime risk involves a severe information deficit. The physical assets are thousands of miles out at sea, leaving insurers largely blind to hidden hazard zones deep in the hold. The standard commercial doctrine of caveat emptor, let the buyer beware, fails under these blind conditions. Sellers have no obligation to offer unprompted information in standard sales. Maritime law replaces this with uberrimae fide, or utmost good faith. This compels the proposer to proactively disclose every detail about the subject matter to the insurer. The threshold for disclosure applies to any material fact. If a piece of information would alter a prudent underwriter's decision to accept the risk or influence the premium rate, it must be reported. The penalties for breaching this duty are absolute. Proving an insured party fraudulently misrepresented or concealed a material fact renders the entire contract instantly void. The insurer also relies on warranties, rigid promises made by the assured affirming or negating specific conditions of the risk. These can be expressed directly in the text, like requiring cargo to be packed in double gunny bags, or they are implied by law, such as the absolute requirement that a vessel be completely seaworthy at the exact moment a voyage commences. Without the forced transparency of utmost good faith, accurate pricing becomes impossible, and the mathematical viability of the indemnity pool collapses. When a marine disaster occurs, the destruction is rarely the result of a single isolated event. Structural fatigue, heavy weather, pests, and human error often act upon a vessel simultaneously. This fault tree model visualizes the 1907 Pawsey definition of proximate cause. To determine coverage, the law isolates the active, efficient cause that sets a train of events in motion, independent of secondary forces. Consider a cargo of rice ruined because rats gnawed through a pipe, allowing seawater to flood the hold. Under the law, the presence of pests and the vulnerability of the pipe are evaluated as remote causes. The entry of seawater, a recognized peril of the sea, is legally isolated as the proximate cause, overriding the rat's teeth. When that proximate cause strikes, the insured cannot passively watch it destroy their property. Under the duty of the assured, also known as sue and labor, the owner is legally required to act as if they are entirely uninsured. They must take all reasonable measures to avert or minimize the loss, with the insurer reimbursing those mitigation expenses. Tracing the exact proximate cause restricts payouts exclusively to verified maritime perils, preventing the indemnity fund from bleeding out over remote issues like standard wear and tear. Once the cause is verified, the deficit must be mathematically quantified. Claims pass first through a deductible, a specified amount subtracted from the total. This eliminates high-frequency, low-impact claims, reducing the overall premium burden for the insured. Losses are then strictly categorized. A partial loss, or particular average, means the asset is damaged but retains its core physical identity and utility. An actual total loss triggers under 3 specific conditions: absolute physical destruction, like a sinking; a complete change of species, such as cement turning to useless concrete from water exposure; or the irretrievable deprivation of the vessel. This chart visualizes the edge case, constructive total loss. This occurs when the physical asset still exists, but retrieving it becomes economically irrational. The threshold for a constructive total loss is a precise mathematical crossover. It hits the exact moment the estimated cost of salvaging and repairing the asset eclipses its final market value upon arrival. When that threshold is met, the insured has 2 options. They can claim a partial loss and retain the damaged wreck, or they can claim a total loss by issuing a notice of abandonment to the insurer. Insurers rarely accept this notice. Accepting proprietary rights to a ruined hull transfers the immense legal liabilities of wreck removal onto the underwriter. By binding damage categories to objective market realities and salvage math, the system prevents arbitrary valuations from inflating the final payout. Even with accurate categorization, the payout phase introduces structural vulnerabilities. If an insured party receives a full total loss payout, but then successfully sues the at-fault shipowner for damages, they generate a net profit. To neutralize this flaw, maritime law relies on the principle of subrogation. The exact moment the claim is paid, subrogation automatically transfers all third-party rights and legal remedies from the insured to the insurer, snapping the insured's ledger back to absolute zero. Another vulnerability arises if a merchant takes out multiple identical policies on the same cargo, attempting to collect double or triple its value. The principle of contribution solves this. Multiple insurers simply divide the single limit of liability proportionally amongst themselves, based on their respective sums insured. Subrogation and contribution seal the exits. Without them, maritime insurance becomes a lucrative vector for systemic fraud, violating limits set by the Preston ruling. The Marine Insurance Acts of 1906 and 1963 function as a cohesive legal structure. This model represents a highly calibrated financial engine, where every individual statute revolves around a single core axiom. The process is sequential. The prerequisite of insurable interest ensures a valid economic stake exists before the system even activates. Utmost good faith guarantees accurate pricing, while proximate cause filters out invalid, non-marine hazards. The mathematical loss formulas calculate the exact deficit. Finally, subrogation and contribution block any secondary avenues of enrichment. Every clause, warranty, and doctrine in marine insurance is engineered to achieve one precise outcome, restoring the exact financial balance of global trade. Nothing less and absolutely nothing more.